The Shadow of the Iron Star, the legend of the indomitable Bass Reeves. The hook. He was a man who escaped the shackles of slavery only to become the most feared lawman in the American Old West. He arrested over 3,000 outlaws, survived countless gunfights without a single scratch, and, most hauntingly, had to hunt down his own son for murder. You think you know the Wild West? You don't know Bass Reeves. Chapter 1. The Crossing. The year was 1862, and the air in Texas was thick with the copper scent of blood and the humid weight of a rebellion that refused to die. Bass was a man built like a mountain, 6'2" in an era of giants, with hands that could crush a stone and eyes that saw through the lies of men. But at that moment, he was property. He stood in the tent of his master, Colonel George Reeves. A dispute over a card game, or perhaps a lifetime of stolen dignity, snapped the tension. Bass didn't just walk away, he fought his way out. With a single blow that echoed the frustration of generations, he laid the colonel flat and rode into the night, heading for the one place the law of the Confederacy couldn't follow, the Indian Territory. In the lands of the Cherokee, Creeks, and Seminoles, Bass became a ghost. He learned their languages, their tracking methods, and the silent art of the hunt. He wasn't just surviving, he was evolving. Little did the world know that the man hiding in the brush would one day return to the sunlight wearing a silver star. Chapter 2. The Judge and the Noose. Fast forward to 1875, Fort Smith, Arkansas, the hell on the border. Judge Isaac Parker, known to history as the Hanging Judge, looked across his desk at the chaos of the Oklahoma Territory. It was a 75,000 square mile vacuum of lawlessness, a haven for the dregs of the earth, murderers, horse thieves, and whiskey runners. Parker needed men who were incorruptible. He needed men who knew the territory like the back of their hand. When U.S. Marshal James Fagan suggested Bass Reeves, the room went silent. A black man carrying a badge and a gun in the post-Civil War South? It was unthinkable. But Parker was a man of cold logic. "Can he bring them in?" Parker asked. "He can bring them in or he can bury them. Either way, the problem stops." Bass was sworn in, handed a warrant, and given a heavy Winchester. He didn't just accept the job, he mastered it. Chapter 3. The Master of Disguise. Bass Reeves didn't just kick down doors, he was a chameleon. To a U.S. audience used to the shoot-first tropes of John Wayne, the reality of Bass is far more fascinating. He was a master of psychological warfare. Once, tasked with catching two notorious outlaws, Bass dressed as a sun-scorched tramp. He hid his handcuffs, his twin .45 Colt Peacemakers, and his badge under tattered rags. He walked 20 miles to the outlaw's cabin, appearing exhausted and harmless. The outlaw's mother took pity on him, invited him in for stew, and let him sleep in the spare room. In the dead of night, while the brothers dreamt of their next heist, Bass appeared at the foot of their bed like a specter. Before they could reach for their pistols, they heard the cold, metallic clink of the shackles. "You're under arrest by the authority of the United States government," he whispered. He marched them for days back to Fort Smith. When they tried to bribe him, he simply pointed to his badge. To Bass, that bit of tin wasn't just metal, it was a sacred covenant. Chapter 4. The Greatest Trial. The most astonishing part of the Reeves legacy, the part that leaves historians breathless, happened in 1902. Bass was an old man now, a living legend, but the law is a jealous master. A warrant came across his desk for a brutal murder. The suspect? Benny Reeves, his own son. The other marshals offered to take the case, to spare the old man the agony. Bass shook his head.
his face a mask of stone. "It's my duty. If he's gonna be brought in, he's gonna be brought in right." For 2 weeks, Bass tracked his own flesh and blood through the wilderness. He found Benny, arrested him without firing a shot, and delivered him to the very court where he had spent 30 years bringing others to justice. Benny served his time, and Bass went back to work. Chapter 5. The Unshot Legend. By the time Bass retired in 1907, the Wild West was being paved over by the 20th century. He had served under 7 U.S. Marshals. He had been shot at hundreds of times. His hat had been blown off, his belt buckled by a bullet, but not a single lead slug ever touched his skin. He walked the streets of Muskogee as a policeman in his final years, carrying a cane, but still commanding the respect of every man, woman, and child. When he passed away in 1910, thousands attended his funeral. Black and white citizens stood side by side to honor a man who proved that justice doesn't have a color, it has a backbone. Historical context for the reader. The Lone Ranger connection. Many historians believe Bass Reeves was the real-life inspiration for the Lone Ranger. He rode a gray horse, gave out silver coins, tokens, and had a Native American companion during many of his hunts. The record, 3,000 arrests. For comparison, most famous outlaws and lawmen of the era had arrest records in the dozens. The skill? Bass was illiterate. He had someone read him the warrants before he left, and he memorized every name and charge. He never brought in the wrong person. This is the skeleton of a narrative that spans decades of American history, from the horrors of the Civil War to the birth of the modern justice system. If you would like to expand on specific segments like the Battle of the Washita or his undercover work with the Seminole Light Horsemen, we can dive deeper into the gritty details.